Welcome back to my channel. As it's the 1st of January, I would like to wish you all a very happy new year. I hope that the upcoming year is going to give us plenty of 9th age fun, and maybe I'll see you on the table even. For now, I'm just going to continue my bottom 5 choices video series. So we have arrived at the bottom 5 Monstrous Infantry. They are big, they are bonkers, and probably they're also bad. How bad they are, I mean, 9th age is quite balanced by now, so probably here there's going to be some really big disagreements between what is the bottom 5 of Monstrous Infantry. But without further ado, I'll just go into the video. My number 5 is going to be the OGRE Bombardiers, and I am sure that there's people that really like these guys. For me, what holds them back is, well, you either field them in small units like 3, or you field them in bigger units like 6 or even 8. They do count towards your artillery cap in the OGRE, so there is some kind of limit to how many you can field. There's good interactions with, I believe you can cast Thaumaturgy and you can cast Pyromancy, so you can get Flaming Swords and you can get the spell where you give -1 resilience to your opponent. So in the end, if you build your list around it, then it can really work quite well. And they look really scary with their hand cannons with range 24 inches, shots D6, strength 4 per model. However, if you factor in the fact that in total you're only going to have 12 models in the list, quite likely, then that's going to be 12d6 shots, which is going to be normally 66 hits on short range. And that sounds impressive, but normally you show down long range because it's going to be more than 12 inches, which means that you only do, well, 1/3 of that. So that's 46 hits. And every single turn, that's a lot. However, then you don't account for cover yet, or any other of the conditions where you get less shots, like ogres just dropping out of your unit. So in the end, to me, it always seems like a really scary unit at the start of the game, and then you do a couple of wounds on it, you have runes on the table somewhere, or a forest. On the stand and shoot, they also get a -1 to hit, and you likely charge from more than 12 inches away. So, and then once you charge in, they are just normal ogres without any special offensive or defensive traits. So they only have defensive 3, they have resilience 4, they have light armor, that's it. So if you can talk about victim stats, these are kind of victim stats. The only thing you shouldn't charge into Bombardiers with is, I guess, just Empire of Sun style heavy infantry without support. Because then you're gonna have offensive 3, defensive 3 yourself, and no special rules to help you in that regard. You have strength lower, resilience lower, and you are gonna get stomped. So yeah, if you charge in with their perfect target, then it's not gonna be good. But if you charge in with anything else, then you're gonna be quite happy, I think. So yeah, I'm sure that there's OGRE players now that are grinding their teeth and are going like, but this is one of the best units in my army. I think that is likely because you built your army around it. Then we go to the number 4, which is also a bit of a choice that you have to build your army around. So that is going to be the Vampire Covenant GHASTS. Being number 4, I think they are worse than the Bombardiers, so that's good for the Bombardiers, right? They are more expensive per model by 20 points. They have a starting point cost that is 20 points lower. So on the end, if you play a very small unit, they are a bit cheaper. If you play a bigger unit, then they are more expensive. So generally, I would say that they are quite a bit more expensive than the Bombardiers, actually. But then again, cross-army comparisons are usually quite useless discussions. The main problem they have is that they have AP1 with no option for a rending banner, and they take up a special slot in your army. So that's a slot where you want something that deals with a problem that you have in your army list, basically. And in your core, you already have big blocks of infantry, most likely with Vampire Covenant. You could play an army where you only have bat swarms and you use these as your anvils, and that I mean, it could work, right? However, if you do that, the Ghasts don't have scoring themselves, so you would have a character with the big bulk upgrade to make them scoring. It's also a unit that you can play to really focus on these guys. If you take the 5 units that you are allowed in your army of 6 models, that's like 30 Ghasts. I believe it is possible. I mean, 3 times 9 is 27 plus 16 is about 400, 450 or so, no, 430. So 430 you can fit easily in 5 units of 6 in your army. And that is probably quite scary, except if the opponent has a lot of armor. So if you play against Warriors of Dark Gods with 4 units of Knights, then you're not going to be that happy, likely. However, they do still grind quite well. If you are to include them, I would definitely include them with Nosferatu or with Alchemy, preferably both. So you play Nosferatu Cosmology with Perception of Strength, and then you play Necromancer with Alchemy Glory of Gold. Just to get to AP2, because AP2 makes a world of difference in a lot of scenarios compared to AP1. Also, reroll to wound is really good if you already have Unearthly Appetite that lets you reroll to hit, and you don't need the Evocation reroll to hit in that regard. So Evocation as a lore is quite a bit worse with Ghasts. And Perception of Strength is always really good. In addition, you will have the +2 offensive spell from Cosmology, which will get them to offensive 5, which is in a lot of cases quite important. You can also get them to defensive 5 in that regard, but you already have Resilience 5 and a 5-up Fortitude, so possibly you're not going to take that many casualties. However, having a Fortitude also means that any army with flaming attacks or a focus on flaming attacks is going to shut these guys down about twice as fast as other models. And then we continue with the number 3. This is going to be the Warriors of the Dark Gods Forsworn unit for me. When it was released, it was in a weird spot already. I think they are not bad. I just think they're not good. So I played around with them a couple of times. I notably played with a unit of 5 with a Doomlord in there, and I thought that was fine, because then the points that you invest in the unit are not that crazy yet, because in the end your unit costs about 400 something points. If you want to go for probably the hardest anvil in the game, you can go for 9 Forsworn Spiked Shields, and you are at 695 points. That is 27 hit points with Resilience 4 and a 1-up armor save. If I'm correct, for no, 2-up armor save, sorry. Yeah, that's just good. It's good. However, it's just an anvil. They only have 2 attacks each at strength 4, AP 1. Once again, you can take a Rending Banner on these guys, but then if you only have 2 attacks each, you're not. If you play a big unit, you are going to put in a Doomlord just for the bodyguard, because if you have a big unit and it's an anvil, it is not taking the initiative in who gets combat resolution. It has only advanced 6, so getting charges off is sometimes a bit difficult still, and if you take a big unit, it gets quite unwieldy. So at that point, you basically let your opponent decide who's going to charge him what, and then if you play them with Spiked Shield in a big unit, which is quite pricey actually, if you don't have a Doomlord in there, then you're going to have 12 attacks, 13 with a champion, with offensive 5, strength 4, and I don't think it's worth it to put a Rending Banner on that. And if you put a Doomlord in, then you don't need a Rending Banner, because the Doomlord is going to take care of that for you. Yeah, so if you play it with a Doomlord, then you probably want to go for Spiked Shield, even though Great Weapon is also fine. Maybe Great Weapon is even better at this price point, because the Spiked Shields, they've gotten so much more expensive over the years. And then if you play just a really big unit, I mean, 12 attacks at strength 6, it's not bad even. But then you do drop down to defense defense 4, resilience 4 with a 3-up armor save. The difference between a 2-up armor save and a 3-up armor save is quite noticeable, I would say. I mean, talk to anyone who played Cav in any form in 9th Age, and you have cavalry with a 1-up armor save. They are generally really good because of the 1-up armor save. Cavalry with a 2-up armor save, which is kind of the standard for heavy cavalry, and then a 3-up armor save is barely played, because if the opponent already has AP1, then you're already down to a 4-up armor save, which is way less than a 3-up. Yeah, so you can also play them still as a small unit. If you play them as a small unit without a Doomlord, I would definitely get the Damnation upgrade, because this is just a really good upgrade. However, it is an upgrade that gives you a completely different role for the unit, because that means that if your unit breaks from combat, then you're going to replace your unit with Ratchet 1 models, and your opponent's going to be in combat with the Ratchet ones. So basically, it's a unit that it's just guaranteed chaff at some point on the board. So that is really strong. However, you do have the mobility issue there of only have a march of 12, and I believe you are also not allowed. You have Path of the Exiled, so in that case, you're not allowed to have more more ranks than files, so you cannot play them as a dart. I don't know if you can play them too wide. That could be interesting still. But yeah, the Ratchet ones, it's a fun rule. However, then you have a unit that you are gonna sacrifice basically to just lock something up in some place. 3 FORSWORN, Damnation. Probably bad weapons then, because they're free, and you do get to offensive 6, so that is quite nice. It's not even a too bad unit. The question is, however, whether it will fit into your army. But then on the other hand, in Warriors of the Dark Gods, a unit of 3 FORSWORN, it's 9 hit points with a 3-up armor save. That is quite decent. You are still scoring, so you can also play them as scoring darts, and then not focus on scoring in your core. In that case, you would play for Fallen probably in your core, because Fallen are still quite okay, however they don't score. So you could make a list that is Damnation themed basically. So you have a Doomlord as a general, and then you can take 6 units of Fallen, I believe. So you fill your core with Fallen units, then you have FORSWORN as the scoring units, and then that could still work quite well, actually. that could work. Because then you just take 3 units of FORSWORN for the scoring, you give them Damnation, and then once they turn into Ratchet ones, they lose scoring, obviously. So maybe you need something that can score a little bit more reliable. But it can still work quite well. Then we have these Saurian Ancients with the CAIMANS. Basically this first argument of them being slow, it applies to all of the Monstrous Infantry that we talked about right now. You have move 6 on all of them, you have March 12, and you have no Swift Stride. This is not necessarily slow in terms of the game. It's just that once you start putting in so much resources into one specific unit, then you want either Swift Stride on them, or you want them to be extremely tanky or extremely hurtful. And the CAIMANS, in my view, they are a little bit in between with quite strong attacks. So they must choose between a halberd or a great weapon. 3 attacks at strength 6 is already good enough, I would say. And their damage output in that sense is good enough. However, they have offensive 3. For me, it's the resilience part that kind of bugs me. If you play in an army that has such tanky units in the Saurian Warriors and the Temple Guard already, then this doesn't really add anything. So you do get some extra strength attacks, but if I can take a unit of Caimans, I can also take a unit or just a hero, which can supply me with like 5 or 6 attacks at strength 7. And that is actually harder to take out than a unit of Caimans, because the unit of Caimans, it has a bigger footprint, it cannot redeploy over the course of the game to somewhere else, and there's also a thing that if your army is already infantry focused or cavalry focused, including monstrous infantry in your army makes it for your opponent quite clear where his anti-multiple wound model tools should go. So, for example, a flamethrower with multiple wounds would maybe prefer to shoot at. Maybe a flamethrower is not really the best example because it would also love to shoot at infantry. But you have these models with multiple wound rules, like characters with multiple wound 2 or so, or D3 on something. If you don't have any Caimans in your army, you don't have to worry about this, basically. So they give your opponent a different target in that sense, and if they don't bring anything that is remarkably better than the core version or the special infantry version or the special cavalry version, then I would say they're not really worth it. I mean, you only get some extra strength here. Is that worth it? I don't think so. I don't think so. So the small units will probably suffer from the fact that everybody else is going to strike first. So by the time that you get to strike, you'll have 6 attacks at max. So you need to take a bigger unit. If you take a bigger unit, you can take maybe a unit of 4. That could be fun if you field them too wide. Well, you can, yeah. I might take a unit of 4 and field them too wide in this case. Because your discipline is fine, because you have cold-blooded. And if you're 4, then your wheels are also way smaller because you miss 40 millimeters in width of your unit. For a wide unit of Caiman, or a unit of 4 Caimans, too wide, that is probably what I would play. Yeah. Then we go to the number 1 pick. For me, this is going to be the Briar Beasts of the Beast Herds. It's a single model compared to the rest. Yeah, I think it's just that it hasn't really scaled with the game. I still compare units across books, and I think it's still a thing that makes sense. So I don't know, maybe Beast Herds has some problems with chaff that I didn't know about, because clearly this is just a chaff piece, really. So the sleeper rule allows you to ambush from the any movement phase sequence, including turn 1, and then you can enter within a forest terrain feature. And it must be placed there. So that is quite restrictive. If there's only 1 forest on the table, which is in the current map packs the case, I don't think there's any map with 2 forests. So basically this means that your Briar Beast has to go there. If your opponent notices this in your army list and just occupies the forest for the entire game, then you can't deploy it and it's dead. That is I think your deployment is maybe the big thing there, because you cannot deploy it normally. You have to use ambush. And if it then were a model that was impressive in other ways, then it would maybe still be worth it. However, you are talking about a chaff piece that has random movement. That is fine. It has tried a forest for some reason. It is not going to be stat fast. It's not going to break stat fast. It will not take dangerous terrain tests. So probably that's just fluff reasons. Okay, so it has random movement 3d6. It is unbreakable. And basically, it's an unbreakable totemic summon, and this is apparently valued at 90 points. It doesn't have a breath weapon, and otherwise it has the stats of Totemic Summon, I think. D6+1 attacks at offensive 3 means that you will max get 4 hits if you roll a 6 on your D6 and a minimum of 1. So between 1 to 4 hits at strength 4, you might do a wound or 2 and then you're unbreakable. So probably the idea is to just spawn it in on the table and then lock something for a turn, and then the other person turns to watch you and then kills it. But you can just lock a unit for a turn. But it having to ambush from a forest makes it predictable, and it's just chaff with limited mobility. The easy way to fix this unit would be to give it normal ambush in addition to the forest terrain feature deployment clause. Yeah, pretty underwhelming. So that's it for me for the bottom 5 Monstrous Infantry in 9th Age. I am certain that there is going to be people that disagree with me. However, I would also like to ask then for alternatives that you would put in this list, because it's getting quite difficult with us moving out of the core territories. And yeah, there's not too many clearly bad choices anymore. Okay, thank you for watching. I wish you the best for the new year, and I'll hopefully see you soon.